Okay.
All right, I want to introduce Mr. Scenza. He is a wonderful author of The Elements of the Cosmos, a book that I just adore. And I'm very, very happy that he is willing to do these geometric designs with us, teaching us the basics of the universe. And I find it very helpful in my meditations. I hope you guys do too. Thank you so much for coming to the class. And here is Mr. Scenza.
Hi, how you doing? How are you? Welcome. So, yeah, my pen name is Scenza, and my real name is Peter. You're welcome to call me either one. And so, as Vega so kindly introduced, through the process of writing articles for the Church of Light Quarterly, eventually enough articles were scripted that we wound up considering, maybe we should kind of stitch this all together as a book. And so with the support and assistance of people like Vega and Vicky Brewer and Peg and many, many other individuals over there at the church, I'm very, very happy to say that this little tome, it's hard to see, came together and has been enjoying some modest success. It hasn't made the New York Times bestseller list yet. So sacred geometry and sound symbolism aren't quite up at the top of not quite beating out Dan Brown or anything like that yet. But but it's enjoyed some modest success, and classes like this help to promote the study and the science of sacred geometry and sound symbolism and just esoteric studies in general. And I'm very grateful to Peg and Vega and all of the other Church of Light officers and members for providing this space. So thank you. We'll begin with the opening ritual, and then I'll explain a little bit more about our process for this evening. I hope you'll have a really great time. Eternal brothers and sisters, we are now about to open a Church of Light meeting in the customary manner, and in so doing, let us consider seriously the purpose for which we are gathered here together, the purpose which, since the dawn of human intelligence, has drawn true brothers and sisters of the light into holy convocation, the purpose which, during all ages, has attracted the spiritual efflorescence of every epoch together at selected meeting places, the purpose which has ever impelled the noblest and most exalted souls of earth to band together for a common effort. That purpose is to study nature's laws, to unfold the divine attributes of the soul, to secure conscious immortality, and to attain the royal grandeur that surrounds the truly perfected human. O thou eternal spirit, in whom we live, move, breathe, and have our being, consecrate this meeting to the cause of truth and righteousness. As brothers and sisters of the light, we seek knowledge at the shrine of goodness. Therefore, by virtue of our unselfish and sincerity in desiring to assist in thy works, we ask the help of the legions of light and their protection from all forces of darkness. So shall it be.
So shall it be.
Shall it be. All right, great. So we are officially begun, yes?
Begun.
There we go, cool. So, so I'd like to share a couple things with you just so that you have them as we go through. And I'm going to leave it to you in terms of your comfort as to whether you want to share your screen, not share your screen. I would love it if you, you go through this process and you come up with a decent product and you're willing to show us, what you've been able to accomplish. That would be just terrific. And I think it's very much warranted because we all come to these processes from our own point of view and with our own level of experience. So I would say that you should enjoy this lesson to the level that you're comfortable, right? So if watching and observing and taking it all in is where you feel most comfortable, then that's fine. And if you have all the tools in front of you, just a few simple, geometric tools, and you'd like to participate, and which I hope and of course encourage you to do, I'd love to see what you come up with by the end. Okay, I really would. And as we're going through, we'll be combining theory with practice. So as we draw these particular shapes, I'll be sharing some insights as to what they represent symbolically and why they've come to have the connotations that they do. All righty. So let me share just a couple quick links. I'd like to share a couple links in the chat so that you have them. The first that I will share is a link for the book, just in case you haven't had a chance to pick it up. You're welcome to go there and purchase a copy. Okay. And the second is a link for the activity. So this I'm going to, just let me get that link and then I'll explain. All right. Here we go. So, and I'd appreciate if you could please test those links and just give me a thumbs up if you're able to access them, or let me know if you're not, because we never know in a Zoom call what's going to work well and what won't. And so please always just, be my ears and let me know if something's not going right and we need to slow down and fix that. So could I thank you, Peg? All right. Peg, were you able to get onto both? One. Thank you, Vega. Both. Excellent. Good. So, so the reason I use the name Scenza is just because, just to keep a nice, clear delineation between my personal interests, which I'm sharing some of tonight with you, and my professional responsibilities. But I'll let you know that I'm a teacher. Yeah, I teach science. And so I have a little practice designing lessons, so when I'm going to do a class like this, I try to put together a lesson that, I think is stepwise and that hopefully, is not frustrating to you and you can follow along. And even if you see something like this, that looks very complicated and some guy comes along and says, don't worry, you can draw that too. And maybe you don't really, okay, maybe, okay, we'll find out. But I try to break it down for you in a way that, if you just kind of go step by step, hopefully you'll have a positive result. Okay. And like I said, experience, it just builds its own success. So if you start and you can do portions of it, but you're struggling with others, then, you come back again, a little more experience, a little wiser, and, all of a sudden, boom, it comes together, click, right? It's in place. And now you press yourself to new levels. All right. So, okay, with that, I'd like to begin. Are there any questions before we start? Any questions or issues? Okay, so I'm going to be working off of the document that I just shared with you because it's helpful for me also to have a little bit of a map. So I've already told you about the book. The book is basically written in two parts. It's called The Elements of the Cosmos, Numbers and Letters as Archetypes. And the premise of this text is that there is tremendous spiritual wisdom hiding in plain sight in the numbers and letters that we use every day. And what I've sought to do is through an investigation of the field of sacred geometry, and really it's more sacred mathematics. Geometry helps us see it symbolically on the page, but it's really about symbolic mathematics. And to sort of cover some of that. So that's section one. And then section two investigates the Hebrew alphabet in the same basic way, sort of attempting to decipher and discern are there any symbolisms related to the letters themselves? And if so, what? Okay, and so that's kind of the premise of section two. So section one deals with the numbers, section two with the letters, and then there's a nice, I hope, synthesis towards the end where I do my best to squeeze some of that information out and summarize it for you as a reader. Okay, so I hope you'll enjoy it. And if you do enjoy it, please share the news with your friends. It's priced very reasonably there on Amazon. That's also on purpose, so it doesn't present a barrier for people. I would never want that to be true. All right, so now we're going to start the design itself. So our goal can look a little daunting at first, but our goal is to draw this, which I call the Many-Petaled Zodiac. Right, so here in the church, we understand the value of the ancient tradition of observing and regarding the stars and the movements of the heavenly bodies and how those movements can impact events here on Earth. And so, of course, the zodiac is a very, very ancient symbol. that relates to all of that. So we'll be looking to draw this. I just had an inspiration one day to combine, to sort of fuse the ancient symbol of the zodiac with sort of a mandala-like structure. And that's what came out. And I'd like to share that with you today. So when a sacred geometer goes to work, he or she or he, you're allowed only 3 tools. Yeah, you're allowed a compass, yeah, like used for, and I'm using a simple one because that's probably something similar to what you have. And so, I want to show you, even with just, there you go. Is that Marianne? Marianne, did I say it right? Very nice, wonderful, very nice. A straight edge, a ruler, and a pencil. And those are the only 3 instruments you're allowed. And there she goes. Nice job. Thank you. So there's a reason for that. The compass, of course, is used to draw circles, and the circle is linked to the number 1, or the monad, for reasons that we'll go into in the first segment of our design. The ruler, the straight edge, is used to draw straight lines, and lines are associated with the dyad, the number 2. And then the pencil is sort of unites them and is what is used to actually bring into manifestation the conditions that are set up with the monad and the dyad. Okay, so that represents the triad, the multiplicity, the birth of the universe itself. Okay, and so that is what we, that's why we have those 3 tools and no others, in the strictest sense, because even in the way that we design and choose our tools, we're trying to model these creative processes. So in the same way that the universe is created through the principle of the monad, the dyad, and the triad, those are the same tools that we use when we do sacred geometry. Okay. So I like to think of the zodiac. Here's a cool thought. You may have thought it already. But I like to think of the zodiac as a symbol that represents the unification of space and time. Space and time. So I like to think of it almost as a 4-dimensional structure, because it marks out space in the sense that it sort of carves out, 3-dimensional arcs of the sky, right? So that's a measure of space, but it also helps us regard time, the passage of time, right? 1 degree is equal to 1 day, 360 degrees, 360 days in the classical zodiac that make up the solar year. So the zodiac, in my eyes, is almost a 4-dimensional symbol in that it regards both space and time. Okay, so that's part of why I thought this would be a fun one to do. And that, of course, is a very ancient symbol that's been passed down. So with all that introduction, let's begin actually drawing. Okay, and so, as is often the case, I'm going to now flip to a clean page, and we're going to seek to recreate the structure that that you saw there at the beginning, the many-petaled zodiac. And I am not a jealous person. I do this, as the church does, to share understanding. And the more that you promote and share anything that you learn here, or say, hey, this was really interesting, you got to check this out. The next time he offers a class, you got to check this out. You're only helping, you're only doing me a favor. Okay, so please feel free to share far and wide. I am not really into, I would consider it only a favor and assistance in this effort. So what I'd like you to do is just turn to a blank page. Now I have a pretty large notebook, but it depends on your size of page. A 1 or 2 inch circle works well to start. So I would say pull out, so take your compass. We're going to start with the compass. Okay. And I'd love to see what you're doing. So always feel free to share. Okay. So start with the compass. And all you need are just those 3 basic tools and a blank canvas. There's some other supplemental things, some colored pencils to make it beautiful, a marker to make it more permanent, and you'll want a nice thin marker. Okay, you don't want a big thick one because it won't fit in the compass. Eventually, we're going to replace the pencil with the marker. So you'll be looking for a thinner marker ideally. Okay, because a thick marker won't fit in the compass and you won't be able to turn circles with it. Okay, so you really want kind of a thin marker. And my wife is now helping me to sort of make sure that you can see what I'm about to do. So just give us 1 second to put that in place. Thank you for anticipating my needs even before I knew I needed them.
Those women, they're pretty fantastic,
Yay,
aren't they?
yay. Yep. So she's kind of setting up a, so there we go. So now this, if you can see my hands bouncing, this is the screen that what we want to do, Vega, if we could, I'd like to have that screen be pinned. So can you do that, or shall I do that, or I can do that? It's all still kind of new. Let's see, pin.
I
Okay.
got it on there. Can you see it?
Yeah, so that's the screen I'd like everybody to follow, is the screen with my hands here. You can see my hands bouncing. If you could, please make, if Vega, if I pin that, will that be pinned for everybody? Or just don't, yeah, my desk is kind of messy.
I don't know.
Genius at work, right?
Mine is
Messy
pinned
desk.
and I see your whole thing. I don't know. If
Okay,
you
cool.
want to go ahead and pin, let me make you a,
Host or something. I just want to make sure, Marianne, can you see it pinned, or do you have to pin it individually?
I'm making you a co-host, so if you want to pin it again, go ahead.
Vanessa, you're good. Vanessa says yes. So Vanessa, can you unmute for a second since you responded there? So you can see this, my hands?
I can.
Perfect, great. You can see it maximized, kind of big enough to actually figure out what's going on. Make it as big as you can, I would say. Okay, great. So now we're going to turn, from me to here, down on the page. Okay. And so I'd like you just follow along and do what I do. So I have a larger page, so I'm going to go with a 2-inch circle. So you just set it, make sure you're working on the inch side. Hard to show you, inch side of the compass, right? Usually there's an inch and a centimeter. I'm going to use inches. There are good sacred geometric reasons for that, but I'm going to leave those out. But the standard system actually appears to be more closely related to dimensions of the earth itself, as opposed to the metric, which I'm a science teacher. We teach metric, but the foundation of it tends to be more arbitrary. And it was created in a time when science is now very materialistic and doesn't really seek to be in harmony or balance with the universe or our planet. And we are learning the hard way about some of that, right? So the standard system apparently is more closely connected. So at any rate, please open your compass to either a 1 or 2 inch radius. This distance here is going to be the radius, and just put it right smack in the center of your page, and then just turn a circle. Okay, just turn a circle. And so there you see, just a turn circle. I don't see if I can get that a little clearer for you. There we go. Okay, so just turn a circle, and I'll give you a moment. I'm a teacher, so I'm used to waiting. If students need a moment to catch up, you just have to alert me. Say, just Peter is fine. Peter's fine. Okay, just could you give me a moment to get that in place? Okay, so we're going to start with a single circle, and a circle is a shape that is absolutely ubiquitous. People might be surprised to see somebody pausing to talk about a circle, but a circle has extremely deep symbolism, and definitely so in the world of sacred geometry. Let me tell you about some of the principles of the circle. The circle is associated with the monad, the number 1. And the reason is because the primary characteristic of the circle is sameness. And that principle is what we sort of conceptualize that the universe itself begins from: a state of oneness, a state of sameness, a state of perfect, uniform, undifferentiated stuff. We don't know what even to call this stuff. What we call it: spirit or God or deity, the all, Yahweh, Allah, you name it. People have come up with a name. And so here we are representing that unknowable force with the circle. Okay, in sacred geometry, the circle represents one: spirit, God, and so on. Why? For several reasons. Number 1, the circle begins from a dimensionless point and expands outwardly in all directions. And that sounds a lot like the Big Bang. So that is sort of a principle of beginning, middle, and end, right? The beginning of something, its its continuity, and its termination, right? So the circle represents that. The circle is a beautiful representation of equality because every point on the perimeter or circumference of the circle is equidistant from the center. So even though every point on the circle is different, in a sense, they're also all the same. And, you know, that is a deep spiritual principle, right? Just like every human on the face of earth is different, and yet we are all the same in a spiritual sense, equal and true, right? So this also is represented by the circle. There's some other points that are included in the manual in the little activity, but I'm going to move on to the more drawing. Okay, so as you can see, I'm trying to blend theory and practice. So we draw, but we also know why we are drawing what we're drawing and what it's supposed to represent. And when you look at it that way, it becomes sort of a meditative process. Yeah, it really does. And once you've done this a few times and you get into it, it's absolutely meditative. Okay, but I'm going to move on now. So now do not change the diameter, the radius of your compass at all, using the exact same radius. So if you started with 1 inch, continue with 1. What you want to do is take the compass point, put it anywhere. It does not matter where. Put it anywhere on the edge, on the circumference of your circle, and turn a new circle that is of the same size. Okay, and you'll get something that looks like this. Okay, so I'll give you a moment to catch up. Now, something very unique and very fascinating has occurred here. We have drawn the exact same shape. It is still a circle, and yet the manner in which they overlap has created new possibilities. We have a new shape involved. We have the possibility of the very first line. I'm not going to draw the line today because we're going to get into lines a little later. I don't want to mess with this pretty image. We can see the line one of two ways. The line we can see coming from the point of intersection above to the point of intersection below, or horizontally from the center of one circle to the center of the other. We could draw the line either way. This shape represents the dyad, the principle of two-ness, the principle of polarity and difference. So remember that the circle, the monad, represented sameness, that which is equal and the same in all instances. By drawing another circle, the principle of sameness, we introduce difference in the way that they overlap and intermingle. Okay, so we're now dealing in the realm and the level of the dyad. How we doing so far? Okay. All right, so the next step is we're going to draw a classic sacred geometric shape called the seed of life. And the seed of life is a very, very well-known drawing that is kind of this symbol, this shape, this figure is at the base of many, many spiritual figures across the face of the earth. There is a very talented sacred geometer who produces a lot of YouTube videos called Zach Corvin. I'll give him a little shout out. Zach, Z-A-K, Corvin. He's on YouTube. He has many, many videos, and he is, I'm more of a theorist. He's more of a practical artist. You know, he's a tremendous visual artist, and he takes these same principles and you know, just takes them to a new level with his ability, his artistic ability. And he says that anytime he wants to draw a shape or a figure, some kind of spiritual symbol, he often uses the seed of life as a base. And, you know, very often he's able to derive that spiritual symbol based on this shape. Okay, so we're going to draw it now. The seed of life, you don't need any measurements. You don't need inches or feet or yards. You don't need anything like that. All you need is proportion, harmony. So what we want to do is right now we have 2 points of intersection. It doesn't matter which one. You'll eventually get to both, but put your compass point on that point of intersection and turn a new circle, same size as the first 2. We don't change the size of the circle. We're dealing here in the world of harmony and proportion. So now I have a third circle. Okay, and this shape also, right? Ubiquitous in spiritual spiritual philosophies, a principle of threeness, the triad, right? And notice that every time that we introduce a new circle, it's just a circle. It's the principle of sameness, but every time we do it, we create new and unique shapes. Okay, and that's kind of cool. And you're going to see that this image, the many-petaled zodiac, if we demystify it, it's actually very, very simple in its design. It's basically, I'm going to let you in on the secret. It's basically a series of circles and straight lines. Okay, so if you can draw these circles and you can draw some straight lines, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. So now all we want to do is keep your original circle in mind. Always make sure you know where your original circle is. Always make sure you know where your center is, right? Good advice for living too, right? So always make sure you know where your center is. And what we want to do is trace, right? When we drew that new circle, it created a new point of intersection with the original circle. So I'm just going to put my compass point on there. And I'm going to trace another circle. Okay, and I'm just going to do that around the horn. I'm just going to trace around my original circle. And when I do that, so then here I introduced a new one, right? Always remember where your original circle is. So then I'm going to put my compass point on that next point of intersection. And you'll see a shape starting to emerge. So now I have 5, right? And now I go all the way down here. I only have 2 left, right? So I'll put 1 here. And try to be as precise as you can about this, because the more precise you are, if you've ever done origami or something, the more precise you are, the more your eventual shape will line up, the more symmetric and harmonious it will be. There's, right? So far I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 circles, but you can see it's not quite symmetric yet. So I need 1 more. All right, so I'll put it here. Again, always know where your original circle is. Make sure you know where your original circle is. And just get that compass point on that point, the intersection point between the original circle and the edge of the new circle. And that brings you back home. Okay, that brings you back home. I didn't do a single measurement. When I say measurement, I mean I didn't have to pull out the ruler and measure inches or centimeters or anything like that. Everything is based on harmony and proportion. Everything is on harmony and proportion. Okay, and this shape right here is what's called the seed of life. The seed of life is a 6-about-1 arrangement. A 6-about-1 arrangement. So we have 1 central circle. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 circles. And you can see almost like a hexagon. If you're seeing a hexagonal shape, you're in the ballpark, you're on the money, right? Because there's a hexagonal arrangement of those 6 circles about 1. So, right, easy math, 6 plus 1 equals 7. And 7, as you know already, is a very, very important number spiritually. And it has lots of symbolism attached to it in the realm of sacred geometry. And if you want to learn more about that, then you should pick up a copy of this book and read the sections on the heptad, the number 7, and on Zion, the 7th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, from which C.C. Zane, as I understand it, took his epithet, right? His name. So at this point, the one thing about Zoom, you're operating a little in the blind. So Vega, how are you doing? Were you able to, how you doing? Are you working along with us? Or are you more moderating?
I forgot my compass today, so I'm not able to play along.
Okay.
I'm devastated, but I will love watching you guys and seeing what you've done. So let me see how far you've gotten, guys.
Yeah, can we have a check-in to see I don't know who's doing, the screens are largely darkened, and I certainly don't want to put anybody on the spot and make them feel uncomfortable. But if there's people who are participating, can I hear from you? Have you been able to get this far?
Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
I've actually tried to do a couple of different ones, and I think my compass is maybe not very good and keeps sliding around or something.
It takes some getting used to.
it doesn't have any measurement markings on it either, which is kind of
Okay.
frustrating. So I was just kind of trying to eyeball. Um, I've
That
been
was
spending
my problem,
time
Lauren.
over.
I couldn't believe my compass didn't have a measure on it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So
it's like you would think that out of all things, but this was as far as I got on my first one, and it just doesn't
Can we
seem like
see?
it was. I don't
And
know.
now this is pinned. Let me unpin
Let
this for
me
one
see.
second. I'd like to see. Hey, that's actually pretty good.
That is
I think
You're really
good.
close. All you got to
Yeah.
do is throw in one more circle and you
one more
have
here.
it. You're
Okay.
missing
One
one
more.
circle. Yeah, so
Yeah.
just put your
Okay.
compass point, Lauren, put your compass point. You're doing great. You're super close. All right, you're just one circle away from the seat of life. And here's a couple suggestions. Number one, if you don't have, let me pin my, where'd I go with that? There it is. Let me just pin this again. If you don't have a compass with measurements, you can just measure this distance from the pencil to the tip. And that's going to give you an approximation of the distance of the radius. Okay. This is
Okay.
because when you turn it, you're going to double that, right? So this is half the distance across the circle. So you can do it that way. That's sort of, if you don't have a compass that measures, you can just do it that way. And a second tip, Lauren, you mentioned that the pencil tip is sliding. One, sometimes that is just a matter of practice, but other times if you have a hard surface under a single sheet of paper, that can make it very hard for the tip to sink in. So I recommend that you're working on a stack, something softer underneath, like a
Yeah.
notebook.
I've got this whole thing,
Let me see.
but
Let me see. That should be okay for you. That should be okay for you.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay,
so I don't think that's
I added my other circle.
that's a pretty good circle. Yeah, that's a pretty good seat of life. You're being hard on yourself. That's pretty good. That's very good.
Okay.
Being hard on yourself. Right? Is this your first time?
Yep.
Well, thanks for coming. It's great. It's terrific. You're being hard on yourself. That's a very good first effort. You're going to be in decent shape. So keep that and keep it going, Sound good. And thanks for sharing out. I appreciate that.
Sure.
And they were able to kind of, address a couple pitfalls and difficulties along the way, because those do occur. Those do occur. Okay, so can you see my screen pinned again? As you
Yes.
can tell, I really love to hear from, I teach during the day. I teach high school students. So teaching adults is different, and forgive me if I come across as a high school teacher. I don't mean to, but I am, I am one. But I always want to hear from my students, and I'm always interested and willing to help you if you're stuck along the way. Okay, so please don't be shy about that. This is a picture of the seat of life. The seat of life is a very mystical symbol. Let me tell you about some of the things that are true about the seat of life. The seat of life is always a 6-about-1 arrangement. So it always is made up of exactly 7 circles. And as you've noticed, we don't need a single measurement in order to create this unique shape. It happens naturally and spontaneously without us doing anything. If you start from a circle of a certain dimension, as long as you don't change the size of that dimension, you will always get a pattern of 6-about-1. You will always get a pattern of 6-about-1. And that has very deep mystical implications. Let me tell you about some other patterns of 6-about-1. So there are 6 inner planets that orbit the sun. There's a pattern of 6-about-1. When we talk about any 3-dimensional object, we think of it as existing in 3 dimensions. If we think about each dimension as an arrow pointing in both directions, then we have exactly 6 directions. We have up and down, we have left and right, and we have in and out, right? Depth. So those 3 dimensions create exactly 6 directions of space. And if we start from the point that is at the very, very center of the object from which the whole thing begins, we have 7. So the central point of the object is represented by the central circle, and the 6 directions of space are represented. I have a little shadow here. There we go. Let's get rid of that. The 6 directions are hold on, I think it's my computer. There we go. Okay. 6 directions are represented by those 6 circles. When we talk about the musical scale, we also see exactly 7 tones in a diatonic scale, right? Which then repeats endlessly either up or down in pitch. So these are different examples of a pattern of 6 about 1, where 7 completes the cycle. And you can see that being represented here as well. There's one other thing. I'm a little bit of a nerd for this stuff. I really do enjoy it. It's definitely something that I have a passion for. And there's another number that I'd like to draw your attention to, which is one that I'm still currently myself exploring. And after that, we will go to what's called the double seed of life. That's a little tricky, but we're going to do it together. And we've seen that Lauren, for example, she was right there with us. She just needed a tiny push so that she could get to that, completed image. So let's hope that you can do this as well. You have this recording, you have the images that I'm creating right in front of you, you have the images, the finished product, and you have the activity. So you have everything you need to attempt this. You say, you know what, I got part of the way, but I really want to figure this thing out. So I'm going to do it again. Okay, you have everything you need to make a second go of this, or if you don't have any materials and so on. Okay. So let me tell you about one other theoretical consideration of the seed of life, and then we'll go into the next set of drawings, which is to create a double seed of life. So we're just going to basically do a new one superimposed on the old. So instead of a principle of 6, it's going to be a principle of 12. And I bet you know something that we use, that we've been talking about, that has a principle of 12 months, right? 12 signs and so on. So the Zodiac is a principle of 12. And once we have that 12-fold symmetry, we can do many, many things with it. So the circle is, most commonly regarded as having 360 degrees. And as you can see here, there are precisely 7 circles represented. So if we take 360 plus 360 plus 360 7 times, we arrive at another very unique number with some pretty mystical properties. And that is the number, right? 360 times 7 is equal to 2,520. I've heard it referred to as the angel number, 2520. 2,520 has some very unique mathematic principles, some very unique mathematic properties. It is the smallest number of infinitely many that can be evenly divided by all numbers in the decad. In other words, it is evenly divisible by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. It's also divisible by numbers larger than 10. But it is the first and the smallest number in the entire series of number where it can be evenly divided by all of the numbers within our basic counting system, all of the single digits. That's a pretty cool feat. That's a pretty cool and unique trait. Okay, and the number is 2520. If you don't believe me, in your spare time, because I know you're excited about things, it's like, oh, I can't wait to pull out the calculator and see if this guy knows what he's talking about. Right? If you get, a spare moment and you want to see if it's true, you can pull out the calculator and start from 2520 and just divide by 1, by 2, by 3, and you will arrive at a whole number every time. 360 comes pretty close. 360 is divisible by every number in the decad except for 7. But the first and smallest number of infinitely many that is divisible by all numbers in the decad, our basic counting system, is 2520. So that's another unique feature of the seed of life, is that it comprises exactly 7 circles, which of course sum to 2520, the smallest number that can divide every number in the decad evenly. So there's another unique feature of the seed of life. So by this point, you should have a seed of life in front of you. Now we're going to go to the next step. We're going to create that 12-fold symmetry. So for this, you need your straight edge and your pencil. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is explain and describe and then model. So when we created that seed of life, we've created a lot of symmetric intersections. And what I'd like to do is bring your attention to this point here at the top and this point all the way here at the bottom. And what I want you to do is a single line that cuts your seed of life essentially in half. It's going to bisect it. And yours might be in a different place. It just depends where you started that first circle. But what you want to do is find those points of intersection on the outside of your circles. And what you're going to do is drop a line straight through. Okay. Straight through. Okay. And that, you see, that's cutting my shape in half. And I want to do the same thing if you turn, if you go here, just follow this circle around, follow its arc, and you'll see you arrive at the next point of intersection to the right. And then that also has a complementary point right across the circle, straight line, 180 degrees. And what you want to do is line that up to, and just kind of test your points first before you draw. All right, and line that up, and then draw another line straight across the circle. Okay. And then if you trace that around, you will come to the third and final of these points of intersection. That one also has a point of intersection directly across the circle, across the shape. And just line up your points. And once you've done so, draw, oops, I went a tiny bit too far. Okay, mistakes are allowed. That's why we work in pencil. All right, just went a tiny bit too far. So there you go. Okay, so this is the next thing that we want to do is we want to cut that into 6 equal wedges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and I do that by dropping 3 lines across the shape. I'm going to give you a moment to take a stab at that. And again, I'm very sincere when I say, if you need a hand and you're struggling or confused, please just ask. Okay, and we'll see if we can get you on the straight and narrow again. All righty, so this is what we want to do now. And the next part does get a little trippy. It can be a little confusing to the eyes the first time or two that you do this. So I'm going to go pretty slow. All right, but I want to make sure that you have this first. Okay, can I get a thumbs up if you feel okay and you're ready? You got these 3 lines and you're ready to go to that next stage. Can I get a thumbs up? Even if you just do it, the virtual thumb. Yeah, we'll just come out here.
Mine is really.
Clifford, thank you, Clifford. Thank you, Michael. Who was talking there? Can I hear from you?
Marianne is talking.
Hey,
and-
Marianne, how you doing? What's up?
well, I'm very asymmetrical.
Okay, can I see what you've done so far?
Can you see that?
I see a beautiful beach with some rolling waves. Unfortunately, your paper also has that. It looks like it's
Okay.
kind of taking on the green screen.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's right.
If you're comfortable, you're welcome to just take off that virtual background for a moment and show us. But if you don't want to do that, I understand. It's fine too.
If I knew how, I would. I have a new
Okay.
computer and my tech installed everything for me. So I
Okay.
am, but I'll just follow.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let me see if I can repin. All right. So hopefully you have these 3 lines. And now do pay attention and do your best to follow along, because this next step can be a little confusing at first if you've never done this before. But when you create those 3 lines, remember, always be in touch with your inner circle. Always be in touch with your inner circle. Always keep that one in mind. When you drew those lines, you created 6 points of intersection between your straight line and the original circle. So here's my straight line. Here's my original circle. And right there, I'm going to make a bigger mark than I normally do so you can see it. There's a point of intersection. Here is, right, here's my straight line. Here's my original circle. Here's a point of, I'm going to make some X's there so you can just see these. Okay. This is a sort of, oh, sorry, my fault. This is a mock-up anyway. Okay. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry about that little boo-boo. Disregard that guy. 6 points where the straight line that you just dropped intersects the inner circle. Okay. Now I've tried to, I didn't just come in here, cold and say, oh man, well, let's hope they can do it. I did test this out. And if you just trust the process, I promise it winds up looking like a pretty cool and complicated shape, but it's not as difficult as it looks, right? It can be done. So what you want to do now is we're going to draw a second seed of life. You already have practice. You've already done it once. Our original circle is the same. We don't change anything about that. But what we're going to do is draw a new seed of life that is offset from the original, offset. Okay, so I'm going to start my seed of life, my second one, by putting the compass point on the point of intersection between the straight line and my original circle. And I'm going to turn new circles. Okay. And they're going to be superimposed over the original seed of life, but they're going to be offset. if I can just get that to focus a little better. There we go. Okay, so this is my new circle that I just drew. It is the same size, but it's just offset. And then I'm going to go to the next. And if you're just doing this for the first time, there's absolutely no shame in marking those out a little bit heavier than you will eventually. Yeah, because consider this a mock-up and a start. And then just work your way around the circle. So now I'm just going to go to the next one. Remember, there were exactly 6 circles. So I'm going to draw another exactly 6 circles. So there's my second. And you can see this really cool pattern with a lot of overlapping beautiful shapes starting to form. Okay. And then I'm just going to go down to the third one. And I'm just repeating the same process again and again. I'm not changing anything. Uh-oh, I think I just hit my compass. Yeah, I just hit my compass a little. Hey, even the teachers mess up every once. So yeah, that thing bumped my compass. I'm a little upset about that. I'll try to get in there and erase it as I can. It bumped my compass. Let's see if I can get rid of some of that. Hey, things happen, right? In the classroom of life, things happen. What are you gonna do? All right, so let me get that in there. I hit my compass in a way that opened up the dimension up, and then I erased the wrong one. Such is life. All right, so I'll get back to that one later. But I just kind of come down here, just drew that one. I go to the next one in line, and I just keep finding that point where the straight line intersects with my original circle. Always stay in touch with your original circle. Always stay in touch with your inner self, with your inner truth. Okay. And then one more time. I'm just going quicker, but I can slow down and give you a chance to catch up. And now I'm back to where I started. Okay. And what I'll wind up with is this really beautiful shape with 12-fold symmetry. And I just want to kind of see if I can fix my boo-boo over here. At least a little bit. When we go to permanent marker, none of this is going to matter anyway, because I'm only going to, right, mark up what I want to keep. So if I made a boo-boo in pencil, it's no big deal. Isn't that how, oh, what you got? Show me what you got.
Can you see it?
Lauren, can we see yours? Can you pin for a sec? Can we pin her?
I don't know
Where'd
how
Lauren
to pin
go?
myself.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. That is perfect. That's
Yay.
exactly what we're looking for. Great job. I
Thank
think
you
you got
for
a
helping.
future. You bet. My pleasure. Very cool. Great. Thank you. That's exactly what we're looking for. So like I said, it looks like this really complicated, intricate shape, but it's not as bad as it seems if you just go step by step. Okay. That's what I found to be the case. Cool. So now we're back to my screen, and you can see that we have really about the same thing. Okay, so you get this really cool shape. Okay, so now we're ready to take it to the next step. So now we have really like a 12-fold symmetry. All right, we have 12 circles, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, around 12 circles. So we can do a lot with this basic grid, with this basic framework. And I'll show you some of the things that we can do with this. Let me show you a couple examples of what we can do, and then we're going to go ahead and finish out. We'll go and finish out this particular one that we're working on, the Many-Petaled Zodiac, as I like to call it. So this basic 12-fold framework can be used to draw some really cool things. Here's a little mandala-like shape. Okay.
Oh, wow.
That came from the same basic grid. Okay. You can do lots of cool things. Here's the inner flower. You can use the lines of intersection to create these petals. Have you ever looked at like a Indian mandala, you know, yoga mandala, and you're like, wow, how do they even draw that? We're giving you the tools to begin. Yeah. We're giving you, yes, and Vanessa, great comment. There are 12 tones in the chromatic scale. Exactly true. So we went from a 7-fold process to a 12-fold product, right? A 7-fold process, a 7-step process to a 12-fold product. And those 7 and 12 are very, very important and they're related in sacred geometry and sacred math. They're related because 7 is the sum of 3 and 4, the triad and the tetrad, 3 and 4, and 12 is their product, right? It literally is their product, what they produce when they're multiplied. Here's another example of a mandala that was produced from the same basic 12-fold geometry. Okay, so the sky's the limit. Your imagination is the only thing that slows you down or stops you. You can do some pretty miraculous things. To get into here's the first diagram where the inspiration occurred. This is the very first one I drew. I said, you know, this is 12-fold symmetry. The Zodiac is 12-fold symmetry. I wonder if we could make a 12-fold symmetry like a Zodiac mandala. And that was the original design that came out of it. Okay, so that's close to what we'll be drawing here. Here's another one that I really particularly like. I just love the colors of this one. This is also drawn from the same basic 12-fold symmetry. So you really can go wild and crazy from this base. Okay, you can do some pretty cool things. And then this, of course, to bring us current, is what we're shooting for today. And when you came in, you know, I give you credit for being brave and stalwart souls, saying, all right, this guy says we could do it. Let's give it a shot. And here you are. And we've seen Lauren, for example, has made some really, truly exceptional progress. And I hope that's true for many of the rest of you as well. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go forward. Let me just find myself in the notebook here. Let's get to the point where we were. And now we're going to turn this thing into a zodiac. Okay. By now, hopefully you kind of half believe me when I say things like this. Okay. Where'd I put that ruler? Straight edge. There we go. Okay. So now we're going to go to the next step. All right. So, of course, you know, just one thing I want to say about the double seed of life. It's a 12-fold symmetry. Vanessa already brought up the 12 tones of the chromatic scale. 12 is also a ubiquitous number in spiritual circles, typically as a symbol of completion, of the culmination and completion of some kind of process. So we might talk about 12 months in a year. We might talk about 12 lunations, which is most common in a solar year. Every once in a while you get a 13th, but 12 is the most common. 12 sons of Jacob in the Old Testament became the 12 tribes of Israel. 12 apostles about Jesus, the 13th factor. So we have here, you know, we have here symbolism of 12 about 1, right? So the 12 apostles around their teacher Jesus, or the 12 sons of Israel around their father Jacob, or the 12 months of the year around the one, you know, comprising the solar year. So a symmetry of 12 and lots of symbolism that's come down to us related to that. I hope this is helpful. I hope the combination of theory and practice helps you learn and consider hopefully some new things, and also that it's fun, you know, as we kind of progress in the practice of it. That's really when I've experienced it and enjoyed it the most, is when it's a combination of theory and practice. Some people love the practice. Some people love the theory. I find that it's most useful to combine both. So we want to start with something very easy. We could use easy right about now, right? So we already have 3 lines in place, and all we want to do is just extend them out. They're not quite complete because we drew some new circles. So what we want to do is just extend them out to the exterior of the shape. So I'm just going to extend that little bit just to complete those lines across the entire shape. Okay, so all I'm doing is just extending the lines that I already have in place. Okay, I'm going to take them and just line up my ruler carefully to make sure I'm going to continue in the same angle and direction. And I'm just going to go ahead and extend those. Okay, same thing for all 3. And you'll notice, you know, like in high school math class or so, you know, you got to leave a tiny bit of space. We generally say to test your points before you draw that line, right? So come over here, test it, and then once you feel comfortable is when you draw, and then you get a good crisp line that is pretty accurate to what you're trying to do. So all I did there, very simple, was just fill in these short segments to make sure that the lines, you know, kind of go out to the complete extent of the shape. Good so far? Lauren, or how you doing, Lauren?
My lines don't seem as wide as yours. I don't know.
Let me see.
They're really light, so I don't know if you can see.
Hang on.
Hold
Let
on,
me
I can't
unpin
see
then for a
myself
sec.
either.
Let me see.
Um, hold on, let me
It's
draw it a
fine.
little darker because it's really
It
light.
looks like you have what you need. We're gonna find that extent.
Like right here.
That's good. Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, it
Yeah,
doesn't need
just
to
do that
be.
6 times.
Okay.
Yeah, just do that. Extend the same line that you already have. Just extend it to the very edge of that circle
Okay.
that it's already inside of. And do that 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. We just want to, because we're going to do a zodiac, so we want 12 equal wedges. So right now we have 6 wedges. So I bet you can figure out where we're going next, right? We're going to try to bisect those 6 wedges into 12, and then we're going to have a 12-fold symmetry, and we'll be all set and ready. So now the grid is our friend. The grid has all of the proportions that we need to cut those 6 segments into 12, but you have to kind of use your eyes to seek and find those points. So here is a wedge, right? Here is a wedge, like a pizza slice. If this were a pizza, right now it's divided into 6 pieces. Well, that doesn't feed too many people. So we want to cut those 6 slices in half to 12 so we can feed twice as many. So what we want to do is look for that middle, and you can see it, right? So here, look, boom, there's a point of intersection. I'm going to be more obvious than I would normally be when I draw this, but you can see that if we just come, there's points of intersection that guide us the whole way through. Okay, and if you want to be that obvious with it, you can go ahead and do that, or you can kind of hide it. Once you see those points of intersection, once your eye makes them out, one straight line across will get you where you need to go. Okay, so then what we want to do is just draw that line. I've just bisected this arc and I've bisected this arc. So now I've cut those 2, right? I've cut these 2 wedges in half. Okay, and I just want to do the exact same thing 3 times. I did 1 already. So now I'll come over to the next big wedge. I'm going to look towards the middle of it, and sure enough, those points of intersection, true and faithful, are exactly where I want them to be. Okay, so I'll just line up. What I like to do is line up my 2 outermost points of intersection, because if those 2 line up, I know everything inside is taken care of too. Okay, that's more or less going to bring me straight across the circle through the central point. And if it's off a little, no big deal. I won't tell. And by the time we complete this shape and kind of outline what we like, those little imperfections, you really won't notice them. And again, the more you do this, the better you'll get. Okay, so now I only have 1 larger wedge, 2, right? 1 here and 1 here to worry about. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go and I'm going to eyeball it. Where's the rough middle? And I can see it again. Here it is. And I have these crisscrosses that help guide my process. This is the secret to building all these mandalas, right? They look super complicated, and they are. But when you get down to drawing them, they're actually based on really simple shapes. So that's it. Boom. So right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If I want it to be really boring, I can make a nice clock face right now, right? I can make a Swiss watch or something, right? But I don't want to be that boring for you. So what we have here is a 12-fold symmetry, okay? And we could do lots of things with this. We have a little flower shape in the middle here that we'll eventually carve out. If we wanted to create some leaves, we can just follow these courses, create some leaves. If we want to create those peaks, we can kind of come, I could show you how to do that. I'm not going to show that because that's more related to the mandala. But the point is that we could do some things to create those peaks as well. It's really not that hard. If you like it and you're enjoying this and you want to do a mandala next time that's very similar, we could certainly do that. You can vote and say, hey, I really enjoyed that lesson. Let's do a mandala together. Okay, so but right now we have a 12-fold symmetry. Lauren, you've been very active. So I'll, I not just, I'd love to hear from others too, but you've been very active and I can tell you're working at this. Have you been able to come up with this 12-fold symmetry?
Yeah, I have.
Cool.
I think I have it all. I don't know if
It
you can
looks good.
see.
It looks good. Let me remove and look. Yeah, that looks it. That's it. You're a pro. You got a job. Gonna give you a job. Okay, great. So that's it, right? So it can be done, right? So this shows that it can be done. And right now we have a 12-fold symmetry. So now we want to do a couple things. Okay, we're almost there actually with the grid for the Zodiac itself. We're almost there. We're very, very close. So thank you for sticking with me. And I hope that the way that I'm going about this is helpful to you. I do have at least one proof positive that this, you're able to figure this out together. So the next thing I want you
Just
to
so
do.
you know,
Yes.
Peter, I
Yes.
caught up.
Hey.
You can't see it, but I was missing one line. That's why it looked lopsided.
Mm.
So I'm good to go.
Is that Marianne?
Yes, I'm on board.
Awesome. Great. I love it. And thanks for sharing. I'm so glad that you did.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I love hearing from you. All righty. We're so, I promise I'll come right back, but with this situation we're all in and doing everything over Zoom in one sense, it's really empowered us because I don't know, we could be all across the country or all across the world. I'll tell you something really cool about technology. I mean, I published this book. I've had people, of course, most of the sales come from the United States, but I've had people from Canada, Japan. Somebody just bought a book from Australia. They could be on this call right now. It's just so cool how the world has shrunk, so that's pretty neat. And so, in this time of isolation, right, to get together and do fun activities like this can be a really healing process. So I'm just so glad when you jump in, chime in, and share that information with me. So what I'd like you to do now is we're going to draw one big circle to unite. I know I sound like Lord of the Rings, one ring to rule them all, right? One circle to unite them all. So we basically want to draw one single circle around this figure to unite them. So what we do is we go back to our original source. We're always connected to that source. And then we bring our pencil point out to the width, to the greatest extent of the widest circle. Okay. So we want to be at the very, very edge. And then what I'm going to do carefully, I advise caution on this one. I'll stop and give you, be careful, go slow, because the wider, when you have a really wide compass or a really narrow compass, it can get a little finicky. Okay. So what you want to do is just line that up on the very outside and then slowly and carefully turn a single circle that unites them all. Okay. And this, all of this is proof positive about how good you've been with your relations and your proportions. And you'll get immediate feedback about whether it's on or slightly off and so on. And that's just a work in progress, right? And just the more precise that you can be, the better it will eventually become. Okay, so all I did was I drew a big circle. There we go, it focused again. You can see there's some slight imperfections. Okay, that's life. When we kind of clean this up with the permanent marker, you really probably won't even see any of that. But we see a very tidy 12-fold symmetry. And now the figure looks united, right? Because we've drawn a single circle. And I want to show you a little surprise, right? That brings back into the whole situation this principle of proportion. So what I'd like you to do, if you have a compass that has measurements, I'd like you to look and see. So take a look at mine, right? So let's see, how about, let's see, Clifford, are you comfortable unmuting for a moment? Can I call on you, Clifford? I know you gave me a thumbs up before. Oh, no, Mike. Okay, Clifford. Okay, Michael, are you able to communicate with us a little bit?
I can talk, but I'm not using a compass.
That's
using
okay.
like
That's okay. You're
gonna
a what?
Circle.
Oh, okay.
I'm using like a protractor.
Okay, I got you.
It's
That's
like
okay.
a plastic circle.
Okay. You can still help, I promise. Because when I first started this process, I began from 2. And what do you see on my compass now?
4.
4, right? So 4 is exactly twice 2. So this shape has naturally and spontaneously doubled the size of the original circle. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
We didn't do a single measurement. We didn't include inches or feet or anything like that. And yet it has doubled. In that principle, thank you, Michael. Thank you for unmuting and thank you for sharing and helping us answer that question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you for being here. And so that principle of doubling is, again, a very important principle. For example, just as an example, the musical scale is based on the same principle. If this were the length of our original string, when we double it, we will always get the same pitch, I'm sorry, the same tone, but just down an octave. You follow what I'm saying? If we started out with a string this long and we pluck it and it produces a tone, let's say it's D, right? If we exactly double the length of the string, we will always get D. We'll just get a deeper tone of D, right? And conversely, if we started from here and cut it in half, and then if we cut it in half, we'll get another, you get the idea? So this proportion of doubling is directly related to music and many other fields. So that's kind of neat that this happens spontaneously without ever having to measure a single inch. All right, but we have a purpose and a goal in mind, and our purpose and goal is to create a zodiac, right? So now you're going to do your best to create the glyphs, whether you're new or old to the process, right? I'd like to start down here, wherever you feel most comfortable, but in this shape, okay, you could see kind of this second ring in from the outside is where I'm going to create my shapes. And I'm going to put the glyphs, the very, very famous and well-known glyphs, right? So there's Aries and Taurus. And this includes every one of us somehow, some way, right? Here's Gemini, all right? And then Cancer and Leo. If there's Leos on the call, we'd know already, wouldn't we? I'm just teasing.
Leo rising. I guess that's why I'm
See?
spoken
Are
up
you?
here.
There, boom. Virgo. And this one, kind of fooled with me a little bit. This circle, she's got to go. This circle's got to go a little bit because it's interfering with my ability to draw those glyphs now. Okay, so there it is. And so where are we in the Libra? Okay, and then Scorpio. Sag are fun, aren't they? Yeah, that's a good sign. Capricorn, getting the work done for us. Aquarius. And finally, Pisces. Okay, I'm going quickly. When I did my, fancy one for photos, I of course measured and was more careful, but you can see the shape. Yeah, we've achieved it more or less. If I can just get this thing to focus for me. Of course, tech. Can you there we go. Finally, you figured out what I'm trying to ask you to do. So there it is, right? That is essentially our many-petaled zodiac. We've created the structure. We've created the basic shape and grid, the framework, the lattice of it. Yeah, and then it's just a matter of what you personally want to do with it. Okay, then it's totally a matter of what you want to do with it. I'm going to show you some possibilities. Okay, and then you can kind of explore and experiment. You know what I would love? I would love it if, because we probably won't get to the finished final product tonight in terms of like coloring and so on. That takes a little longer, and that's something you certainly can do on your own. But I would love it if I give you, hey Vega,
Yeah.
can do I still have a Church of Light email address? It was peter@light.org. Do you know if that's still active? Is there a way to find out?
Check right now.
Can you see if that's still active?
Yes, I'm going to check right now.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes, that's true. If you wanted to go with that, you could write. Michael has made a great comment that if you wanted to, you could go with the specific colors that are assigned to each sign. You can go, it's really completely up to you and what you feel most comfortable with and what strikes you. I've drawn this many different ways depending on my mood and my fancy. Sometimes there's blues, other times there's pinks, other times reds and greens. It really depends. Hey, beautiful.
So yeah, this was I was too impatient for the class because my friend's birthday was on the 6th. But and so it's not exactly right now.
That's so
like
pretty.
I like having the different sections for the different houses, but I actually went in and added like the planet placements and
That's
stuff
so cool
for her as well.
Yeah.
I
I
just
love
wanted to
it.
share because
I
then
guess
on the
she's a Cancer
outside I
there,
have
yeah.
like the houses,
That's so
and the
neat.
different
You
signs.
really, I think you might have a
But I'm
job here.
definitely going to be taking some of the stuff that I learned from you today and
Oh, it's my pleasure.
expounding on it a bit. So
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. That's so cool. I
Peter?
love that. Yes.
You have a Peter external
Okay.
as a email.
What does that mean? Can you give it to them? Is there a way that I could hear feedback from them? That's what I want to give them a chance and a way to connect with me.
Peter, I
Um,
believe that's just your regular email address, your personal
So
address.
I should just give
Yes,
that one.
yes,
That's
please.
fine. I'm going to give that. We're all friends here. So I'm going to give you my personal email address in case you would like to follow up. I would love to hear from you. I would love to see your final finished products. If you want to take a quick snapshot of that and send it to me, that would just be terrific. We're not quite done yet, but we're getting close. And I just want to show you some of the possibilities, but then please take down its pretty simple email there and feel free to reach out. And, I am definitely of the
You
mind.
can always send
yeah.
it to me too, and I will forward it to Peter.
Thank you. Thank you, Vega. I appreciate that. So we have many things that we can do with this. We can create many different patterns. So I do like the sort of flower shape that's created in the middle. And there's different ways to flesh that out. You can overlap them different ways, but now you get to have a lot of fun. And now it just gets to be very meditative. Okay. So we're basically just using, you look like you're a pro. Like, how do they possibly draw these shapes? But really, you're just tracing, don't tell. You're tracing circles and straight lines. Don't tell, but it's all right there in front of you. And if you get one that was a little imperfect in the original design, just fix it with your eye, so that it becomes more symmetric, and nobody's going to know. When you get to that final product, they're not going to notice those tiny imperfections. Okay. And you just, you can see that there's a flower shape sort of coming into being. There's different ways to, I can extend this all the way to the center with the petals themselves and create these sort of oval-like shapes. I could do it that way, right? I could do every other one. So I could do a petal that goes all the way here and then leave one that, is differently shaped there. It's really what I feel like doing and what strikes me in that moment, but you can see, you can just kind of start sketching out this beautiful little flower-like shape in the center. Okay, whatever the case is. Now I'm just going quicker. Obviously, if I were doing this, to have a really high quality finished product, I would go slower and really line up these lines and make sure that I get everything the way I like it. As a science teacher, I do tend to be precise. Just filling this in so you get a rough idea. Okay, so you see that we have a nice 12-fold shape in the middle. I can just kind of fool with it and create a nice symmetric pattern. Mine is not perfectly symmetrical because I showed you different possible options that you could use. Okay, then what you can do, yes, I can hold it up. So I'll just kind of put it right here so you can see now you're seeing all little marks and such, right? So that's kind of a 12-fold symmetry. And then I can do other things here. If I want to, I can come out here and have like a petal shape and just follow that out and just create like, sort of petals inside of petals. There's many different ways I can do it. Okay. If you want to get a little more complicated, you don't have to, but if you'll notice, there's some points of intersection here that we didn't really do anything with. But what I can do if I really want to get complicated, and this gets into those mandala shapes too, is I can create a circle at those points. This I'm just showing you possibilities. I can create a single circle that cuts through, and then I can do it again at the wider point. Okay, if I just get my compass set in that hole there. All right, and I can just do it. And that's really, I'm just using the points of intersection to my advantage. And then those shapes, I'm sorry, it kind of blurred out on me. And then those shapes that I showed you before start to become possible. So if I can kind of trace this out for you, I can kind of, I can start to shape this out. Let me see if I can get this shape in there for you. I can start to create those larger petals that you saw. Okay. I can start to do shapes like that. I could bisect them if I can cut those down and give them texture and three-dimensionality and so on. There's lots of different things I can do. Mine is starting to look like a good old mess. Sorry, that's because I'm being a liberal, so to speak, in the way that I use my diagram. Normally I'd pick one shape and stick to it. You know, like if I decided to do these big leaves, then I would just do that all around the figure. If I decided to use the little leaves, then I would use them all about the figure. Here, I'm showing you multiple possibilities, so mine's getting a little messy looking. Okay, I hope that showing you that is helpful. And that's, that's it. So then you just kind of, there's two things that you need to do to really tighten and finish this up for yourself. Number one is you want to use the marker. You would use the marker to trace over all your lines. So what I do is, with the straight edge, it's very easy. I just go in there and I find my original line and I just line it up. And then I just basically use the permanent marker. This is a permanent marker, but it's an art marker. So it's of a higher quality and thinner, so that I can get the thickness of line that I want. And you basically just go in there and start to draw over, right, your various pencil grid that you drew. You just start to make it more permanent. Now, when you're at this stage, do be careful. Be careful, because mistakes made in marker are going to be more permanent, right? If you make a little flub in pencil, no big deal. You can always erase it. But when you make that mistake in marker, it's going to get stuck. It's going to be there. So just go slowly and be careful, all right? And then you just kind of grid it out. You get the point. You can see that our 12-fold symmetry is coming into being. It's getting fleshed out. I'm basically just copying out the lines that I've already drawn. Okay, very easy, very easy. Looks complicated, looks hard. Actually surprisingly easy once you get in there and start doing it. Okay, and then I've successfully copied over all 12 of my lines, 6 lines cutting into 12, right? So, and that's it. So there's the solid, and those are the straight lines. And then if I want to copy over my circular lines, what I do is I just replace my pencil, my compass pencil. I just replace it with, I'm just going to, estimate this for now. Normally I put it on a flat surface and get it just right. But I just basically replace my compass pencil with a pen. And then I just go back over every circle that I drew. So I drew, I think I want to say 13 basic circles here. And I'm going fast, so it's not perfect in its proportion, but you get the basic principle, right? And I will just basically go over all of my circles in the permanent ink. And that's when it really starts to pop off the page, right? And then I'll just find my seed of life, my 6-fold symmetry. And then I'll find the superimposed one, the 12-fold symmetry. And then I'll go out to the really, really big one. And I'll unite the figure by carving out that big circle with the permanent marker. And that's kind of how we get the main shape. Okay. How are we doing so far? I'm abridging this part because we're kind of coming up on the amount. I don't want to keep you too long. I realize we're all busy people and have jobs and lives and such. And I really appreciate you being here with me. But I think we've given you the basic framework of it. And then it's really up to you to flesh it out and color it in. And like I said, I'd love to see your finished products. I just don't want to keep you for such a long period of time. The coloring is really fun, but it'll take us a good half hour or so. And I think that's something you can do on your own and just enjoy the process. I experience it as very meditative, and I wouldn't be shocked if you did too. So then I would just go in and start coloring, and that is going to be different every time. So depending on the mood I'm in, so like maybe I'm in a green mood, so I'll just get in there with some green pencil and just start, kind of getting that in there. There's one thing I should say first. Sorry, I went so fast that I left one thing out, is that once you get once you get your shape all replaced with the permanent marker, then you can go back and erase any pencil lines, and you'll just be left with your right kind of clean grid. Okay, and then once, the rewrite, you obviously wouldn't want to erase your pencil lines after you go and color, right? So you're going to erase before you color, and then you can get in there with some coloring pencils and just, start to, I feel the color really brings it to life. And then you can just start to color and bring that thing to life. You can color it all a solid. You can alternate. Maybe you like green with pink, right? Or something like that. Maybe you want to make, something that's a little more original and distinct. Maybe you want to alternate the green with the pink. Maybe you want to make it more true to life and just stick with one color for this flower shape in the center. It's all up to you. Every bit of it is up to you. That's where you really get to express yourself and have fun and be creative. Okay, and this is the basic structure of the Many-Petaled Zodiac. It's, thank you, Marianne. I am very, very glad. Yes, I ended up with the mandala and signs. I love it. It is my pleasure. And I'm glad you had a good time. And I'm glad you're able to follow along and had some success. Nothing makes me happier. Okay, and so, obviously this is not quite as finished. So let me show you the finished product so that you know what your sort of end goal is. And I know we showed you this at the beginning, but it's always nice to end on, a sort of finished looking product. But this is what came of this whole process. And hopefully that should not be a bridge too far anymore, right? So hopefully that you can see how you would get from a blank page to something like this, right? And you can see, right, there's a little flower within the flower, and then here's the inner circle. And if you're really careful, you can find the circles that we use to create this grid. Here's a circle, here's a circle, here's a circle. And you can kind of find those if you really train your eye to look for them. And of course, the circle that unites them all. I took my time with the glyphs here. You could see they're much more, regular and artistic, I hope. I really took my time with those glyphs and measured them out and so on. And that's really kind of it. So this is the finished product. This is what you're aiming for. Your color choices can be very different than mine. To be honest, mine would be different the next time I do this also. And I hope this has been helpful and fun for you. And that kind of wraps up what I was planning to show you. So at this point, Vega, if there are questions or comments or anything I can do to help our students along, I'm thrilled to do it.
So
it's my pleasure, Victoria. Thank you.
And if you have any questions for Peter, please ask him now.
It's my pleasure, Clifford. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
This is Rebecca. And
yes,
first, I can't get my screen on. There must be a reason for that. I don't know.
That's okay.
The reason I wanted to turn it on now is to show you mine.
Oh, I would love to see it.
But maybe I can email it to you.
Email me a photo. I would love to see it.
Yeah, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, Rebecca. And I would love to see it.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Okay, are there any other questions or comments or anybody who wants to share? Or
I just want to say thank you again. I've been struggling for the longest time with trying to draw seeds of life and flowers of life. And you can see in my notebook here that I just have all sorts of mess that just doesn't make any sense and doesn't look good at all. And then I have today.
Look at that.
Really a huge, huge improvement. I cannot thank you enough.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Oh, that's it. That's what we live for as teachers,
Yeah,
it's at that aha moment to see this, so I love it. Thank you so much. I deeply, deeply appreciate it. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you, Lauren. Exactly. Practice. Yeah. Thank you, Michael. You're right. You are right. Practice makes perfect. Cool. Other comments or questions? I also hope that the visit with theory helps you to understand why we draw these shapes and what they're supposed to represent. We just kind of touched the surface with that, but I hope that we asked you to think in new and different ways about something as mundane and simple as a circle or a line, right? We draw these things all the time, every day. And, we don't understand the sort of deeper symbolic meaning that they held for our ancestors and can hold for us, when we look at them with a spiritual mindset. Yes, it's my pleasure, Marianne. It's my pleasure. Okay. So any other questions or thoughts? Listen, thank you so very, very much for joining me today. If you enjoyed the lesson, I deeply, deeply hope that you will come and bring a friend, a buddy, an acquaintance, or somebody who's crazy enough to like this stuff the same way we do. I'm just teasing, right? But I hope you'll bring along a friend, and that's how we grow things, right? Organically, step by step, lesson by lesson, experience by experience. So I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure to be here with you this evening, and God bless. Vega, if you wanted to, I believe we have a closing ritual.
I will.
That we will do, right?
Thank you.
My pleasure.
And now for the Church of Light closing ritual. Eternal brothers and sisters, we are now about to close the Church of Light meeting in the customary manner. And in so doing, let us consider seriously the kind of life it is fitting a brother and a sister of the light should live. We must each leave this meeting to go about our daily duties. But unless we take with us some higher thought and nobler purpose, we have spent our time here in vain. For knowledge lacking goodness leads to naught but self-undoing. Each brother and sister has pledged himself or herself to put forth an effort to alleviate physical and mental suffering, to dispel ignorance, and to spread truth. Therefore, even as we would be helped by those of our religion who are more enlightened, let us make every effort to assist others, and let each so conduct himself or herself as to be an example of moral purity, radiating life, light, and love upon the world of their endeavors. O thou eternal Spirit, in whom we live, move, breathe, and have our being, dismiss us now with thy blessings, and as we travel along our several ways, let the ministers of thine guard our footsteps and light our pathway, that we may not stumble in our blindness. From our hearts, we thank those who have assisted in our researches. And now, as we depart, we consecrate on our efforts to the cause of truth and beneficence. So shall it be. Thank you so much, everyone. We've had a really wonderful time. Thank you.